Hey folks, so you're going to see, for fuck's sakes, Friday tomorrow on Rumble. That's going to be on the same topic that I'm doing this one on. I'm trying to keep my composure now that I've vented my spleen for Rumble. Sorry. The medical assistance in dying stuff that's going on, it's very sickening. Check out tomorrow's For Fuck's Sakes Friday on Rumble. Please subscribe to my Rumble channel. I want to get to 100 as soon as possible so I can live stream some of this shit. And really tell you guys how I really feel. I may very well turn my back on YouTube completely once I get to that 100. I don't really want to, but it's quite likely. But today is Thinking Man's Thursday. And I'm trying to cool off from the very, very fiery rant I just did on this topic on For Fuck's Sakes Friday. So, and I am aware that monetization doesn't happen if you swear within the first fucking 2 minutes or so. Whatever, I don't fucking care. I don't ever expect to be monetized by YouTube, no matter how many watch hours and subscribers I have. Though I'm at about 1/10 of that point right now for watch hours. Not sure how many subs I need, but it's damn near unreachable at this point, and that's basically the point for YouTube. But medical assistance in dying, when it was first talked about as assisted suicide back in the 90s, and I think it even started in the 70s, maybe even earlier, this was considered something of a mercy. It was like abortion, a necessary evil. And at the time, as a liberal-ish centrist, as the saying goes, if you're not, well, the saying is communist versus capitalist, or communist. But if you're not a liberal or a leftist when you're young, you have no heart. If you're still a leftist, communist, liberal, when you're older, you have no brain. The quality of mercy is one of the few things that humans have over animals. Animals do not have a quality of mercy. And whether you want to say that's something that was provided by our creator, as my friend Aiden Paladin more likely would, and my friend the Storm and Mormon, I don't believe that that's necessarily the case. I believe mercy is something innate in humans. It comes from our ability to empathize, from our ability to rationally place ourselves in the shoes of other people. I meant souls in terms of the soles of your feet. My apologies. But initially, when this idea was first presented to me, we were all seeing people who were in abject misery and being kept alive in a state of perpetual agony. How someone could look at someone in that condition and not say, yes, this person should be given the right to choose whether or not they continue existing in this state is, it was impossible for me to think that someone else should be able to say, no, you don't get to die on your own terms. People should always have the right to die on their own terms, whether it's in combat, whether it's in a medical setting, whatever. But you absolutely have to put restrictions on that. You can't just look at someone who has an allergy and say, okay, that's enough reason for you to want to die. How many of us have had a really bad illness, something acute, like a flu, stomach flu, virus, whatever, and we've been laying there in bed and we've just thought, fuck, I want to die, because you felt so miserable. If you had a doctor walk in at that exact moment and go, okay, let's put you down, wouldn't your response be, no, fuck off? Are you off your fucking head? I don't actually want to die. And if you were at that point and someone put you down, how would your family feel? How would you, 15 minutes later, 2 days later, 3 hours earlier, before you got sick, how would you really feel about it? And one of the problems we have is that there isn't a lot of self-empathization. People don't look at themselves and go, what do I really want? What do I need? They'll look at something like, as Tom McDonald points out, rap stars who tell you to go pop pills and live at the club till you're broke, that you need a fast car or expensive clothes, designer shoes. But you don't need any of those things. What you really need, is to establish your own identity, be true to it, find out who you really are, and live that way. We are no longer encouraging children to think for themselves. And it's very obvious when you see things like the medical procedure that has been pioneered in the last few years, or the fetish that has been disseminated from China to the rest of the world, and which continues to render people faceless, even now, when really the moment of concern has fucking long since passed. I don't give a fuck what Gavin Newsom says. There's no need for it. But when it comes to assisted suicide, and I won't call it anything else, I will not give it the pretty title of medical assistance in dying, because that's not what it is. It used to be presented as dying with dignity. Now it's, it's euthanasia and assisted suicide, plain and fucking simple. And in some cases it appears that it might even approach murder, just as abortion does. Now, my personal thinking, abortion is one of those things that should be available for very specific circumstances, with a lot, and I mean a fucking lot, of restrictions and alternatives presented. If I'm given a terminal cancer diagnosis, I will immediately go out and buy opiates, if that's what it takes to control the pain. If I'm dying anyway, what difference does it make if I become opiate addicted? If, as one of my friends suggested years ago, I get a cancer diagnosis and I start taking massive doses of THC and CBD, and that actually seems to, if not stop the tumor, prevent it from growing. If there are alternative methods that I am not being presented that may have some efficacy for me, and the first option that I'm offered is medical suicide, I will spit in the eye of the person who offers it to me, and I will tell them to get the fuck away from me before I send them ahead of me. The idea, this is another extremely crass example of this sort of communistic thinking, of the sort of tyranny that Canada is beginning to fall under. The idea that medical assistance in dying, and I'll use the term in this one specific instance because that's the language they use, that the enemy uses. And yes, they are the enemy of good thinking people. That terminology is being used by people who think that killing the citizenry, because they're essentially worn out components in the machine of the nation, they think that this will solve cost problems and organ donation crises. If I'm 82 years old and I've been a smoker and a drinker, a drug user, and a general ne'er-do-well, how much value do you really think, plus I have thyroid disease, how much value do you really think my organs have? But here's the problem. The offering of assisted suicide is being expanded. And you're going to find this very sinister. But there will be links that back this up attached to this video. It's being offered to mentally ill people. People who are simply depressed. So they're already suicidal. They may need a clinical intervention to get out of it. They may simply only need 20 minutes to feel better. They may only need to talk to someone like me or you or anyone else who's willing to look at them and go, look, man, life is shit, but the struggle is worth it. When you wake up tomorrow, you might get up with the sun, look up, and see the most beautiful sunrise you've ever seen. You might walk out your door tomorrow, discover a stray dog on your porch that adopts you and makes your life worthwhile. You might be a young person who feels in the throes of puberty that life is not worth it. You may be struggling with social issues. You know, I went through a period that actually did lead to a suicide attempt where I lost a bunch of my friends, my academic levels dropped rapidly, and it essentially destroyed my self-image to that point. And I did attempt suicide. I will add on that I was drinking very heavily at the time and discovered that alcohol is a disturbingly potent depressant for me. Which is part of the reason I don't drink to excess any longer. Or do so very rarely. And have in my mind a point where I go, that's enough. And I stop. But I did not acquire that rigid control by chance. It was by hard-earned wisdom. The sort of hard-earned wisdom that I try to pass on. And that's what Thinking Man's Thursday is really about. It's about speaking not just to you guys, but to myself as a young man. If I had had someone with my life experience able to reach me at that age, then I would probably be in a better position in my life right now than I am. One tends to hope, at least, that I would have avoided some of the tragedies that I've experienced. And you can't avoid all tragedy. This is another thing that people need to learn. There is no way to avoid every single tragedy in this life. The only way to avoid tragedy is by participating actively in a tragedy. And there will be people who will hear this and say, oh no, I can stay home and play video games all day and I don't have to interact with people, I don't have to go anywhere. No tragedy. Sorry, that is a tragedy. Not living is a tragedy. We fail in no greater degree than when we refuse to try. And Michael J. Fox pointed this out. One's dignity may be assaulted, maimed, and stripped away. No, sorry. I have that slightly wrong. Let me check the actual quote. Okay, the actual quote. One's dignity may be assaulted, vandalized, and cruelly mocked, but cannot be taken away unless it is surrendered. So, if you get to the point of feeling like things are not worth it, do something new. Just go and do something new. And I don't mean take out one disc and put in a new game. I don't mean change the channel. I don't mean watch a new YouTuber. I mean do something slightly radical. Change your hair, if that's what it takes. Now, be aware, no matter what you do, it may not work to make you feel better, but it'll give you the impetus to try something else. And don't quit trying. Keep at it. And for the love of all that's holy, do not ever think that you are worthless or unworthy. No matter what, no matter how bad you have it, and this is something I learned the hard way, no matter how bad you have it, there is always someone with something worse going on. And they can look at other people and go, I'm glad I'm not that guy. There's always going to be people like that. And there's always going to be that out for you. Now, As horrifying as the idea of medical assistance in dying being used to save money for the government is, it's even worse when you look at Toronto Sick Kids Hospital. They had a plan in place. Whether it was enacted or not doesn't matter. The fact that it was fucking put forth and potentially going to be put into action is enough to make me want to burn the entire place to the ground. They were planning to offer medical assistance in death to sick kids without their parents' knowledge. Let's go through this rather quickly, shall we? Children cannot consent legally, therefore this would be fucking murder! Sorry. Had a little bit of, for fuck's sakes, Friday slip back in there. Now, if you look at the citizenry of the country you are governing and think, they're in the way, they're a problem, they're a resource that we can no longer afford to maintain, you are scum. Straight up, flat out, scum. You are a bastard and deserve... We'll leave that alone because we're on YouTube. But if you look at euthanasia as a way to save costs, maybe you should think about overhauling the healthcare system and go, maybe we should switch to a for-profit model. You know, like the US has. Right? Maybe we should take a significant chunk of the tax money that we're using for this medical waste and just hand it back to the taxpayers and say, you know what, folks? In 5 years, we're going to phase from a single-payer healthcare system to something that fucking works at least a little better. Introduce competition into the system. There are 2 doctors in my community. It takes a month to see either one of them. If you go to the emergency room, in a town of less than 5,000 people, in a region of less than 10, it takes hours at an emergency room to see someone for a routine issue. The last time I went to the hospital, I needed a fucking refill for a regular medication. My thyroid medication. It took me almost 2 hours to see a doctor for 5 fucking minutes. Why? Why is that necessary? Why is it there's not a system of free clinics and a for-pay system? For example, that refill that I needed, if it cost me $20 to see the doctor for the 5 minutes that it takes me to get that prescription written, what's the problem? I'm willing to pay the $20. The doctor's willing to take the $20. What's the problem? Why can they not do that? Why does this cradle to the grave thing seem to be pushing people into an early grave? And the organ donation thing. Are you mad? You would have to be insane to think that it's a good idea to have sick children euthanized and harvest their organs. What the fuck is wrong with you? I don't care if the child has a terminal illness with no likelihood of recovery. 10 minutes from now, there could be a cure for whatever that condition is. So, here's the final thought for Thinking Man's Thursday. Do not participate in medical assistance in dying unless it's your only out. And don't let the government be the ones who do it. You make your choice. You do what you think is right for you. But don't ever let your government tell you that you should die. Doesn't matter if you're a veteran. Doesn't matter if you're a sick kid. Doesn't matter if you're a 91-year-old with no limbs and fading mind. Though, to be fair, in that situation, I would even think you might have a reasonable choice or a reasonable case for medical assistance in death. But if money is the reason that your government wants to put you down, maybe we need a new government. Just a thought. Anyway, folks, this one has been a bit extra long. I will appreciate likes, shares, subscribes, comments. Do subscribe to my Rumble channel as well. Links in the description. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a subscribe star. That's also linked in the description. And I rarely think to do this, but I will shout out both Simon JJ and STORMYEYES as my supporters. I very much appreciate their support at this point. But we've got to find a way out of this. Whether it turns out to be building Yisrael, my friend used the eunuch, whether it turns out to be something more active, which, sorry, I may be a violent person, but violence is not my preference. It's not my preferred solution. It would be absolutely ideal if we could simply write a petition, have it heard in the House of Commons, and have it actually change people's minds. But we don't seem to be at that point. We may be beyond the point of that. I really hope we're not. But after a lifetime of difficulty, I am firmly of the belief that no matter how much of a struggle your life is, if you are mentally competent to continue the struggle, you absolutely should. If for no other reason than, and this is my atheism speaking, there may be nothing beyond this particular world. There may not be. Now, I'm an unconvinced atheist, and I don't say one way or the other whether there is or is not an afterlife. If there is, awesome. If you truly believe there is, then you work on that basis. I don't. I don't have any faith. I have some spirituality, but that's more in terms of my emotional and mental well-being, how I relate to the world around me, my attitude and ideals as it goes to dealing with people, as it goes to dealing with my people, people in general, people in my circle. But speaking as someone who has been suicidal in the past, I would not trade any moment since my attempt for oblivion. Not one single moment. And I have had massive tragedy in my life. I would never, ever trade a single moment of those tragic days for the peace of the grave. And if you're in a bad place, I absolutely encourage you to find someone you can talk to. And try to do it in person if you can. Go and have a coffee with someone. You don't even have to tell them why you want to have the coffee. Just tell them you want to enjoy their company. We are social creatures. As much as certain people may want us to live isolated lives in the pod and online, we are social creatures. So go and find someone you can be social with. Go and find an animal you can be social with if need be. And don't forget that humans are animals. In any case, folks, this one's a little dark, and I do apologize. I hope you're not too black-pilled. And, well, it is what it is. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And rise again until lambs become lions. Goodbye.